What is going on, everybody? It is Crypto Bobby. Hope you are having a great day, great night, wherever you are watching or listening in from. Welcome to another episode, another edition here of Crypto Happy Hour. Hope you have all been well. Today, a lot of interesting stuff to cover, and obviously questions, answers, as much interaction as humanly possible. When it comes down to things today, what am I drinking? The ever important question. I have a glass of Pinot Noir because I am cooking dinner tonight, and that dinner is braised short ribs in with Pinot Noir, some nice fresh egg noodles, and then braised or roasted root vegetables. So I got a whole assortment going. The wine will go great with that. Let me know what you guys are drinking as well. Would love to hear from all of you. What is up, Norlis? What's up, Christopher? Professor Wally, what's going on? Water, beer, wine, doesn't matter. Hope you guys are having a good Thursday evening if you're on the East Coast or wherever the hell you might be. But a couple different things that I wanted to just cover in general. Number one today, the EtherDelta SEC information that came out. I thought that was pretty big news, depending upon just your thoughts on the industry and a lot of the a lot of the components of crypto. So number one, the EtherDelta news. Number two, we have basic attention token got listed on Coinbase proper. So I want to talk a little bit about Coinbase additions in general. Previously, I've said I've kind of said in the past, speculating on Coinbase additions does not matter. I do think we're at a point right now where if you're trying to make money and you're trying to speculate, Coinbase additions do make a difference. We've seen that with ZRX leading up to and then following the Coinbase addition. Now we're seeing that with BAT, basic attention token, as well. So I know I haven't updated my portfolio much at all recently. It's been quite a while. I'll probably do that in a new video coming out. I'm going to consolidate down on a lot of different things. So we'll definitely be updating on that. What's going on, Professor Wally? Really appreciate that super chat. Thank you very much for that. So yeah, there's a couple different things that we can cover today. The first one being this news came out at, I guess, 7:15. I don't know the time frame, actually. I think it was a little bit later, but CoinDesk tweeted this. Just in, SEC charges EtherDelta founder with operating an unregistered exchange. It's the agency's first enforcement agency or action based on findings that such a platform operated as an unregistered national securities exchange. There is an entire filing here. It's a litigation filing. I can post that there. It's interesting on a couple. So I posted it in the chat. It's interesting for a couple of reasons. So number one, Zach was the kind of founder and really sole proprietor of EtherDelta before he sold it in December. And EtherDelta, if you guys were not familiar, was basically the go-to spot to go dumpster diving for shitcoins, especially during the ICO craze of mid to late 2017, where there were so many different ERC20 tokens that were going live. A lot of those ERC20 tokens were basically added to EtherDelta because you could self-add those tokens. And it was one of the first and only, it was typically the absolute first, and sometimes the only place to have any liquidity for those ICO tokens was EtherDelta. And Zach sold EtherDelta, who is the founder. Zach sold EtherDelta, I believe, in December. And then EtherDelta fell off the map when the new founders or the new company behind it got hacked and a number of other things. But this is something that you do want to keep an eye on for the prospects of decentralized exchange as a whole. There's a couple different things about that were fairly interesting. The fact that EtherDelta took fees, 0.3% of transactions. They took a 0.3% fee within the confines of their exchange. There's an order book, there's a matching engine. There are some different components to EtherDelta that kind of stuck out, and then also the fact that they did not have any KYC, that they did not threaten to, or that they did not kind of operate that, or that they allowed U.S. citizens to operate within the exchange. And you've seen recently Shapeshift implementing KYC, or saying they're going to implement KYC. IDEX saying that they're going to be implementing KYC, which is know your customer. If you're not familiar, basically ID checks, similar to what Coinbase has or what a Bittrex has or something like that. So there are a number of different components that I think make this pretty interesting, and definitely something to keep an eye on for the exchange space, and then for the decentralized, or what people have kind of commonly referred to as decentralized. Now people are talking more about the fact that it's non-custodial, but also within this, within the confines of this charge, within the confines of this basically settlement, just because EtherDelta was non-custodial, EtherDelta didn't hold your funds. They went into a smart contract that Zach himself developed, but EtherDelta specifically did not hold your funds. That didn't necessarily matter. So there's a lot of exchanges, I think, that operate pretty similar. They're non-custodial, but they look very similar to EtherDelta. So it'll be interesting to see how things pan out for those exchanges and what changes they might put into place. I think you're going to see more KYC across the board, and maybe some pivots from some of these decentralized exchanges as well. So definitely something to keep an eye on. And somebody said Horse Maximalist, interesting point I read on Twitter. The order was not against EtherDelta. It was against the owner operator of EtherDelta. It is actually the past owner operator. Zachary Coburn is no longer the owner operator of EtherDelta. I believe he sold it in December. Nice timing. And then he paid a fine. I think it was a $75,000 fine and a $300,000, I think, disgorgement fee, something of that nature. So rumor has it he sold it for much, much more than that. And as somebody who's used EtherDelta in the past, and it was not an easy thing to use. It was not a fun thing to use, but it was one of the only sources of liquidity for some of these tokens. I'm happy to see that that the guy didn't get absolutely hung out to dry and thrown in jail for the rest of his life or anything like that. Settle with the SEC and move on. So happy to see that. On the other end of the spectrum, outside of that, obviously, if there's any questions, definitely let me know. But we have here, so I previously tweeted something about Basic Attention Token. This was when the Coinbase Pro listing happened. So Basic Attention Token was listed on Coinbase Pro, and I said previously that I would. I don't own any Basic Attention Token right now, but I would sell my Basic Attention Token if at the time of the Coinbase Pro listing. Turns out that Basic Attention Token ran for quite a bit of time after the Coinbase Pro listing, and has since moved, and at this point in time, today actually got listed onto Coinbase Consumer, Coinbase Proper, just Coinbase in general. And when that happened, you could see here, and shout out to Node Investor for just a quick chart, and I'll pop into Coinigy, but Coinbase tweeted Basic Attention Token is now live at Coinbase.com, the Coinbase iOS and Android apps. Coinbase customers can buy, sell, send, receive, or store BAT. As soon as they did that, you can see the arrow right here from Node Investor. The price of Basic Attention Token fell off the map, just absolutely got worked. And we'll pop over to Coinigy. Let's see here. So on the news of the Coinbase listing, Basic Attention Token is down about 13% against Bitcoin. Granted, I don't recall exactly when it got listed onto. I don't recall exactly when it was listed onto Coinbase Pro, but you can see here. Actually, I think that's probably when it was. There's still, if you bought it when it got listed to Coinbase Pro, you're still up 20%. So at that peak, we're actually down to pretty much the range in which I said, hey, I'd ditch it and I'd sell it. So kind of a break even at that point in time, but something interesting to keep in mind as these tokens look to be continuously listed onto Coinbase itself. And Naima, I will be speaking at NAC3 in Vegas, so I'll be out there on December 8th. So looking for that, looking forward to that at this point in time. No other conferences I'm scheduled to speak at this point in time outside of that. But so outside of that, with Coinbase, there are 3 other tokens that they initially said. If you guys remember, it was a while ago, but there was a point in time where Coinbase said, "Hey, we're evaluating five tokens, cryptocurrencies, whatever it might be, to get listed in." What's up, James? Good to see you, man. I will take that question in a second. We're evaluating 5 different cryptocurrencies to get listed onto Coinbase, and we're going to list them on Coinbase Pro first, then on Coinbase. And when they said that, they said, we're going to look at ZRX, which is Zero X's token. We're going to look at Basic Attention token. And then they also mentioned that they were going to look at Stellar, Cardano, and Zcash. So looking at those, the three that have not been listed so far, there have been two that have already been fully listed, and then we have Stellar, Cardano, and Zcash. And as I'm looking at things, in my personal opinion, when I'm looking at it, I think that Zcash has a pretty good opportunity to be listed on Coinbase. And part of the justification for that is, while it is a privacy coin, it is kind of optional privacy. It is not. It's not privacy by default, and that's why many people think that Monero is a better privacy coin than Zcash. But it is not privacy by default. You have to opt into that, and to opt in, and to use it with something like Gemini. I think that the fact that Gemini, which is the Winklevoss twins exchange, the fact that Zcash is on Gemini already, and that's a New York Department of Financial Services approved listing, essentially, I do think that probably paves the regulatory clarity that Coinbase needs to list Zcash on the exchange. The other one I would say is Stellar. I think, in my opinion, Cardano, ADA probably has the least likely, or is probably the farthest along from getting listed on Coinbase. And then for Stellar, I think there's a number of different factors that might include why I think Stellar might get listed, but even blockchain.info or blockchain.com, not that I'm going to participate in the Stellar airdrop that they're doing, but I think they're doing a $120 million Stellar airdrop, and I think it's $25 per person, but you have to KYC. For me personally, it's not worth it to KYC on blockchain.info to get $25 worth of tokens, but the fact that they're doing that and kind of going through that process with Stellar, I think they've certainly hired quite a bit of lawyers around the functionality of Stellar, whether Stellar may or may not be a security. I'm sure you could argue that, but I would say that Zcash first and Stellar, which I have a small position in Zcash. I have no position at this point in time in Stellar, but I would think about potentially opening one up due to the fact that I think there's a decent chance that it'll continue to get speculated. Listed on Coinbase. David, hey, what's up? I hope all is well. Everybody shout out to David. I think hopefully you are safe in South America, wherever you might be, David. He's doing some awesome stuff with cryptocurrency and supporting people in need and trying to spread adoption. So shout out, David. Hope all is well, brother. What's up, James? Nice to meet you in Malta, dude. If it's true that the courts in China have just made BTC legal again, do you think this will give price a liftoff? I think that so I saw one article, I think it was like BTCNN or something. It was some article today. Somebody tweeted about it. I think it was from Catherine Wu, who is at Masari, and she typically puts out some pretty decent analysis on China as a whole. But Catherine wrote about this, I think it was like 2 weeks or so ago, specifically about like the court order that they put out. So I don't know if that's necessarily good, new news. And I think if it was real news, the market would have reacted in a much bigger way. Because if you guys remember, there was a point in time in which China was like 90% of crypto volume. And now that's obviously not the case, because China is basically bans anything that's fun, cool, interesting, good, whatever. So China's banned a lot of that stuff, specifically crypto, Bitcoin, and all that good stuff. So I think if that news, I don't see it as what the headlines presented that as today. I guess that's my personal opinion. So Holland and Jasper, $25 free is not worth it for me. Is not worth it for you. For me personally, no, it's not. I'm not going to provide my passport and all my personal information for $25 for free. That's my personal opinion. Somebody else out there might look at that and say, hey, I really need this 25, I'm really interested in this $25 of free XLM. And this is going to be something that's can be great for me, whatever. Sure, then go for it. I'm not disparaging anybody who thinks that, but for me, weighing the pros and cons of it, it's not something that I'm personally interested in participating in, so I won't. So that's just kind of my overall thought process on that. Norlis, how are things going with the Casa node? Good so far. Working on, I have a couple friends I need to set up some payment channels with. But the setup itself of the Casa node was pretty cool, pretty interesting. The team itself, it's a small team that created Casa, the Casa node, but they have a Telegram group for the first round of people that bought the actual node itself. And I am definitely, I'm happy that. Certainly happy for myself that I went and acquired it, but I definitely need to play around with it a little bit more. It has been cool just looking into the Lightning. It's kind of encouraged me to dive into the Lightning Network more and get familiar with the economics behind the Lightning Network, some of the technical aspects behind the Lightning Network, where it might be effective from a scalability perspective, where it might not be effective from a scalability perspective, but overall the technology is pretty damn cool. Edwin, what am I drinking tonight? So right now it is a glass of cheap Pinot Noir that I used in, I'm cooking braised short ribs. Yeah, braised short ribs, beef short ribs. And put half the bottle basically into the braised short ribs. The other half of the bottle is going into my stomach. So there we are. So Jonathan, good question. What are your thoughts on private blockchain with token economics? That will solve the scalability issues the whole the same time, still having token economics. So I'm not exactly sure from like a private blockchain. I mean, there's private blockchains out there. I don't understand necessarily like why you would need a token for a private blockchain specifically, unless it's like multiple instances of private blockchains. But for the most part, most of the companies, it seems like, that are developing the private blockchains don't necessarily have a token surrounding that. I had a chance. I had a dinner a few weeks ago, actually. It was the Penn University of Pennsylvania, UPenn, did a dinner, and I sat next to the head of blockchain for Microsoft, and then across the table was the head of blockchain for IBM. And myself personally, I'm kind of a private blockchain skeptic. I think that by privatizing blockchain technology, it takes away a lot of the benefits to blockchain technology without getting any of the if I guess my overall thoughts on like maybe an IBM or a Microsoft from a blockchain perspective, and they were fantastic people, very nice. I wanted to be skeptical and wanted to not like them, but they gave me no reason to. They're nice, good people. So that's that changes some of my perceptions of that. But when I look at a lot of the private blockchain technology, I think it takes away the good parts of a blockchain technology, and then you're still stuck with all the inefficiencies, or many of the inefficiencies of blockchain tech. Because let's be honest, a lot of blockchain technology right now is not the most efficient way to do things. The Paul 3D, what's up, brother? What source would you recommend to learn about Lightning? I kind of understand it, but not really. To no idea how it reaches consensus and then goes on chain. So it really all comes down to these payment channels with Lightning Network and my Casa node. If I go into it, click manage node, essentially what you can do is open up payment channels specifically with other Lightning nodes, and once you open up those payment channels, people can essentially hop between payment channels. So the more people that are connected on the Lightning Network, the more efficient it becomes. And you can actually charge, depending upon how things work, but you can actually charge fees if you are routing between nodes. Like, let's say I'm at the middle of a number of different nodes. I have a number of payment channels open with people, and there's somebody that's very far away in terms of the kind of chain itself, and they want to pay somebody that I have a payment channel open with. I can actually route that payment and take a small fee based upon that. But there are a number of different, there's a number of different like really good resources. I would just kind of I would dive around. There's a lot of Medium posts that were older. I read a few different Medium posts. Some were older from like January of 2018, when, you know, talking about when Bitcoin had $40 fees and saying, hey, you know, Lightning is this thing that's supposed to solve that. There's a lot more recent ones, and I think there's been a lot more development as of late. So I would recommend trying to check out some of the more recent Medium posts. Are typically a great place though. What's up, Don? Any thoughts, updates on Bakkt? Thanks, man. For me personally, I think Bakkt is, where is Bakkt? I believe Bakkt is launching in the very near future. There we go. Well, neither of these are the best. What do you got? Lawyer don't Jake Travinsky. Actually, Jake is fantastic. Let's see. Is he on Twitter? You guys don't follow Jake. Jake is right now one of my favorite follows on. Right now, Jake is one of my favorite follows on Twitter. So I would highly recommend you give Jake a look. So I'll pop it over here. Highly recommend you give Jake a look when it comes down to just any legal type of, he's great for ETFs, he's great with Bakkt, but we'll take a look at his thoughts in general. So Bakkt plans to launch next month on December 12th, and some people are hoping it kicks off another bull run. Now seems like a good time for a quick discussion on what Bakkt is, why it might be exciting, and when will it get regulatory approval. So Bakkt is a new platform for, I read this previously. Bakkt is essentially a platform. It is owned by the parent company ICE, which is the parent company of the New York Stock Exchange, is the Intercontinental Exchange, ICE, one of the second largest financial exchange owners. They own the New York Stock Exchange. They also, when Bakkt was announced, they announced partnerships with Microsoft, which is a big deal. They also announced partnerships with Starbucks and BCG, which is Boston Consulting Group, which is probably between Boston Consulting Group and McKinsey, one of the two best consulting firms in the world. A lot of people do think it's going to be a big deal. And then Bakkt is launching futures. So one of the first products that Bakkt is launching is futures. They're going to be, I believe, next day delivered. So here it is. What do we got? It's next day delivered futures. And I believe it's physical delivery. So if you buy futures right now, the futures that are currently available, I believe, are cash delivered. So if you buy the futures and then you hold on to the futures long enough, you get cash. With Bakkt, you will actually receive real Bitcoin, which is somewhat interesting in terms of adoption, velocity, things of that nature. Could have some cool implications. And then from the later phases of what's going on with Bakkt, from the later phases of that, and you're looking at it, you have a partner potential. It's already announced, but Microsoft and Starbucks. So the Starbucks thing is fairly interesting because maybe it's some type of centralized service, but if Starbucks is accepting Bitcoin, I think Starbucks coffee sucks. I still drink it on occasion because sometimes it's the only thing available, but it is it's pretty interesting to see. And somebody said, well, it's not that big of a deal to be a Microsoft partnership. This is an actual, with Bakkt, I think it's kind of an actual Microsoft partnership. There's a lot of companies out there, and I went on a rant recently about this, but there's a lot of companies out there, or specifically crypto projects, that will become a certified partner of a of like a Microsoft or an Oracle or an Amazon. If you are a certified partner, that is not the same thing as having a partnership, in my opinion. I worked at Oracle for a decent amount of time. I worked at NetSuite, and that was acquired by Oracle. So I worked at NetSuite, worked at Oracle, and I also sold software and competed directly against Microsoft certified partners. So had some experience in that space, and I think this was actually more of a real legitimate partnership than Bakkt just being like, hey, we bought it, we bought Microsoft Azure, so we're here. Guys, looks like, I don't know exactly what the hell's happening right now. Looks like we got a bunch of people just joined the live stream. I have no idea if the market's going anywhere. No, market's not happening. So good to have 1,000 of you on. And as always, thank you guys for subscribing and for watching. If you are new to the channel by any chance, hit the subscribe button, the notify bell. And if you are enjoying this video, hit that thumbs up button, would be fantastic. Helps get this video out to as many people as possible. But we will start just taking as many questions here as possible and checking it out. Chock full of nuts. gourmet coffee is I'm usually too lazy. I have an AeroPress. Usually too lazy to use it. We'll usually buy coffee instead. Oliver Paxson, what what is the programming language currently seems to be preferred for developing distributed ledger projects? Solidity is one right now that Ethereum is built on, and a lot of people have complaints on Solidity. That's also one of the things that a lot of the competing projects outside of Ethereum are trying to leverage is developing with a more common language than Solidity, which some people say is dog crap. But yeah, that's something that I don't think there's necessarily an industry standard at this point in time. So thank you very much, Professor Wally. I appreciate the super chat. Always good seeing you here, man. Jonathan Cornish, isn't there tax implications when you spend cryptocurrencies in the US? Yes, depending upon the size. The folks at Coin Center, which is a lobbying firm in the US specifically for cryptocurrency, folks at Coin Center have been doing a lot of work to try to get some of the limits pushed up as far as, if you spend money on crypto, that's not taxable. So, everybody talks about, or people talk about, hey, we want to get increased adoption in cryptocurrency. How do we do so? What do we do for that? So when they talk about that, one of the big things that, one of the big issues for that is, if I want to go buy a cup of coffee, like how do I calculate capital gains on that? Or if I want to buy a TV, how do I calculate capital gains? Whatever it might be. If I want to go to the restaurant, what do I do? If it actually accepts Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, what's the process of that? And so Coin Center is doing some interesting work there. Nemo, what's up? Appreciate the super chat as always. Where can I learn more about security token offerings? I know you must be an accredited investor doing due diligence. I have a few different videos on security token offerings, Naima. It's something that I work on quite a bit, specifically at AirSwap. We're supporting a company called Propeller with a security token offering for a New York property. And let's see if I can even just pull it up here. There we go. Oh, there we go. Apparently I can't find it. Pornhub adds crypto payment though. There we go. So I've been working on this quite a bit as far as like the technology services. So something that I have some familiarity now with security token offerings, and then also when it comes to the secondary trade of security tokens, we've been working pretty heavily. If we pop over here to, I'll pull up Carlos, but definitely give Jake a follow as well if you haven't done so yet. He's great. But in addition to that, so where do we have it? Give me 1 second. Yeah, so this was something, that I've been working on quite a bit as well, as far as the secondary trade of these tokens too. So building out the compliance around the DS protocol and spending a ton of time on that. So if you have any specific questions on, crypto or on security tokens as a whole, always happy to answer those. That's something that I actually have a decent amount of knowledge in. Shockingly, I have a decent amount of knowledge in like one thing. We'll see though. Oliver, what's up, man? Are you still a fan of platform plays, or are you liking security or privacy plays more? For me right now, I think Bitcoin, at least on top, seems like the safest bet. If we're holding, if Bitcoin is holding 6K, I'm fairly bullish for the time being. I know right now, today, it's dumped to like $150, so it's not a massive move by any stretch. Bitcoin volatility has been lower than 1.5%. It's been incredibly low. Today is probably one of the more volatile days we've seen recently. But I'm still, I don't know if I'm bullish, but I'm definitely not bearish. The longer we hold 6,000, I feel like the more comfortable I am with that. As far as privacy plays, I think Zcash is something that I might build a more of a position in on the back of of Coinbase listing hype. I think that's something that I might look to. I mean, for the time being, I think I like Monero more from a privacy play, but Zcash is interesting with the hype that Coinbase can potentially generate there. As far as the platforms go, I was at DevCon. DevCon was Ethereum DevCon in Prague. It was definitely interesting. I think that a lot of the platforms struggle from similar issues in some respect. But when I look at Ethereum, and if you were at that conference or if you're at DevCon, there was like 4,000 people there. And I know a lot of people are bullish on other platforms. The one thing I will say about other platforms is they're going to have to convince Ethereum developers to migrate to their platforms. And I don't think that is an incredibly easy thing to do. I do think that it's possible. It's 100% possible. People can absolutely move from one place to another. And I think that if Ethereum fails to scale, there's this whole Ethereum 2.0 thing now. It's called Serenity. Vitalik had his keynote on it. And it's basically like, hey, maybe this is going to happen sooner rather than later. But when it comes down to it, Ethereum is in a race to keep pace of the scale of these other platforms, be it EOS, be it Cardano, be it some of the other, be it Neo, whatever it might be, versus potentially, versus those platforms trying to win over Ethereum developers, I think. And the level of dev talent working on Ethereum now is pretty incredible in my opinion, but there's also some significant flaws with Ethereum, and there's also massive scaling issues, and it has felt maybe a little bit, I think some people still feel like Ethereum is specifically kicking the tire down the road when it comes down to fixing some of the scalability issues. So it should be interesting to see how it pans out. XRP to $20 by January. Don't miss out. What are you smoking, and where can I get some of it, please? Smoking all the good stuff. Got some XRPers up in here. So taking a look at some of these questions, as always, ask away, guys. Is Ravencoin worth the hype? So for me, I've looked at Ravencoin. I've owned Ravencoin. I've traded Ravencoin before. From a security token play standpoint, I don't think it's going to be. I think the majority of security token infrastructure is being built out in Ethereum, and it's not necessarily something you can really trade for the time being. Like a lot of the companies that are doing work on Ethereum, when it comes to security tokens, you have like Securitize, which has the DS protocol, Harbor, which is the R standard, TokenSoft released one. Polymath has their own ST20 standard, but that's one of the few ones, and some of the token economics behind that are up for debate as far as things go. But I think that Ethereum and some of the other platforms are much more likely to be used for security tokens than I would think Ravencoin is. Is it red wine you're drinking? Yes, it is. It is definitely red wine. Can you touch on LTC? Yeah, I can. So Litecoin, I am not a massive fan on right now. That's just my personal opinion. It's it's held. I guess it's held $50 a little bit recently, but I'm not a big fan on Litecoin. I think that I don't love the Litecoin use case anymore as much. I think I'll use Litecoin if I really need to, Like if I need money between an exchange in like 2 minutes, I'll use Litecoin. But I think that Litecoin is in many respects too similar to Bitcoin and to Bitcoin Cash. And Litecoin's value goes way up when Bitcoin's value goes way up, and there's a ton of speculators, and the Bitcoin fees get really high. But Litecoin is heavy competition between Bitcoin Cash and basically any of the other cheap blockchain solutions out there. I don't think that there's enough differentiation between with what Litecoin does and what Bitcoin Cash does, or even what Bitcoin does right now. That's my personal opinion. And a lot of people used to be like big Litecoin fans, and I think there's, for whatever reason, I've seen there was a point in time where like Litecoin was like the talk on Twitter. Like people loved Litecoin, and they're just like they're gone, they're poof, they're gone off in the wind. So yeah, that is one thing. Guys, give me 1 second. I need to throw my root vegetables into the oven because Bobby Flay is getting it done. Yep, that's what's up. So did I watch the Roger Ver video? I saw the email. The email's hilarious. A lot of different people talking about would they welcome back Roger to the Bitcoin community. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. If you are a quote unquote Bitcoiner, you don't have to be a Bitcoin maximalist, but if you really like Bitcoin, maybe you don't like Bitcoin Cash, if Roger says, hey, I'm interested, I was tricked, I was hoodwinked into this Bitcoin Cash stuff, and I'm back on the Bitcoin train, would you welcome Roger back into the community because he has done a ton to help Bitcoin off the ground initially, or do you think his divisiveness in the past year plus is too much to overcome? Would love to hear your overall thoughts on that. Facebook and Litecoin thing might be good. No, there is no Facebook and Litecoin thing. I think that's so looks like we're seeing nope, nah, nope, nah, nope. Peter Hansen, did you ever get to interview Justin Sun at that summit? Justin Sun, I think, canceled. There was like switched out at that summit. He was not there. So I did not get to see him in Malta when I went. Something burning bridges, something. Yeah. There's definitely something to be said about burning bridges. That's absolutely true. And I think Roger might have burned quite a bit of them. I mean, so there's positives and negatives too about Roger. I think true Bitcoin maximalists will say he's advised a bunch of shitcoin projects. He's invested in a bunch of shitcoin projects. So if you're like a true Bitcoin only maximalist, Roger is not the ideal person because he has done a lot to encourage the growth of other projects outside of Bitcoin as a whole. But when you think about it too, I think he did do quite a bit to get Bitcoin off the ground initially. Would it have gotten off the ground without him? Probably. Did at one point in time he might have earned his nickname Bitcoin Jesus? Yes. Is he still Bitcoin Jesus in my opinion? No. If somebody called me Bitcoin Jesus Bobby, would I say yes or no? I would be like, no, please don't ever call me that again. Stop it. GTX futures. Guys, at this point, I know it hasn't been an hour, but I need to finish making the dinner and covered a lot of the good stuff that I wanted to talk about, and the wine's running down. So I will be back, obviously, with more content. Excited about that. Heading out to Penn State this weekend for football game there. Did not go to school there, but I have a buddy that has an expensive RV, so I'll be hanging out at Penn State. Might go live if I'm hungover. We'll see what happens, but Gonna watch some football this weekend. Tailgate should be a good time. We'll try and get a video up before I leave tomorrow. But really appreciate everybody that joined. Ton of fun tonight. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and if by any chance you're new here, would love for you to hit the subscribe and notify bell. Thank you absolutely so much for your time. I hope you have a fantastic day or night wherever you might be watching in from. And I wish your portfolio luck, whether it's all Bitcoin, a bunch of shit coins, whatever it might be. Hope you guys take it easy. Peace.